This episode of the Growth Podcast is brought to you by African Life Financial Services.
For many young people, you enter an organization, you are relatively new. What kind of attitude do you think is needed for a new employee in an organization?
So if you're then saying that, no, I can only do what's in my job description, then in essence, you're saying that you don't want more responsibility and you're happy where you are. So you then also start to know, where is the company going and what do I need to do to become relevant to the company in the direction in which it's going? So continue building relationships, because you never know who will recommend you. You never know who will also give you the advice that you need for your next level. The organization that you're in may not be able to recognize that. But as you start to interact with more people, other people will be able to tell that this is an individual that is working hard. So you need to be open then to take various opportunities that will come up. Other times, it's people who are preparing you without telling you that they're preparing you.
It's time for the big conversations, telling stories of movers and shakers, of industry giants and daring professionals. It's time for the conversations that change your perspective on life. The kind of conversations that shape entrepreneurs and move careers forward. If you don't know where these conversations are found, we are sending you a GPS. But if you're listening to this voice right now, you are here. Welcome to the Growth Podcast. This is the GPS.
All right, we're back after Valentine's. We are over that whole Valentine's thing. We're still in February, but we're no longer focusing on Valentine's. We're back to our usual programming on the podcast this week. This is episode number 31. We've had a lot of conversations over the past few weeks, and we're very happy that you've been with us, from the very beginning up until this moment, because this week we're having a conversation with a young CEO. These are the kind of stories that we like to tell in the country. Young people who are really making strides, either in their business or in their career. And our guest for this week is no exception. He is the Chief Executive Officer for African Life Financial Services. Obviously, he will tell us a bit about the company, but our focus is on him as an individual. We want to get his story, and that will not be denied to you. Please welcome Mr. Jonathan Imakando. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Lanji. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you on the podcast. How is African Life Financial Services?
African Life Financial Services is doing fairly well, looking at growing, and we're pushing ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
What exactly is African Life, first of all, and what do you guys do?
All right, thanks for that question. So if you look at African Life Financial Services, it's actually the leading private investment management company in Zambia. Primary focus is around pension fund management. So we are the largest private pension fund manager with about 60% of the market share, and we hope that market share will continue to grow. Then beyond that, we also have investment products that are tailored to institutions as well as individuals. These investment products are what are known as collective investment schemes. In other jurisdictions, they're called mutual funds. So either an individual or an institution are able to invest in these products.
Great. How big a company is African Life? Because, most times when you hear, I'm a CEO, like, you're a CEO, I'm also a CEO, because I want to also run my own business. But I want to appreciate how big a company is African Life.
Okay. I think the different perspectives in which you can look at African Life Financial Services. For starters, African Life has been in existence for over 30 years. Just last year, we did have the privilege of celebrating 30 years of operating within the Zambian market. So when I did mention that we do manage close to 60% of the market share, that as at the end of December did translate into slightly over 8 billion kwacha. So in terms of the funds that we have under management, and these are funds not per se for African Life Financial Services, but for our clients who cut across various sectors. Broadly, you're looking at the main sectors, the mining sector, the banking or financial sector, retail sector, and all collectively forms that 8 billion. And then when we look at it from the pension scheme perspective, it translates to over 58,000 employees that we're managing their pensions for. So there is a significant input that African Life Financial Services is providing into the economy.
Great. Let's now come to you. We now know how big the company is, so we even are getting to respect you more. How did your career start? What's your background in terms of your education?
All right. So in terms of my education, maybe going back to your elementary, primary, as well as secondary school, it was all done at one school, Rhodes Park School. So finished my grade 12, and then I did have the privilege of having my first job soon after I completed my studies, and that was with a company called Proxy Limited. It's under the Dana Holdings. So I was an accounting clerk for close to a year, and then after that I went to the United States to pursue my studies. Went to a school called Pensacola Christian College. I was there. I did a double major in accounting and finance. So soon after completing, I then opted to proceed to do my master's. I did that at Morgan State University. That's in Baltimore, Maryland. So completed that. Worked for about a year also. Just to get experience. So I was what is known as a business operations officer, but in essence, I was a glorified accounts receivable and primarily looking towards billing clients and so on. And then it also gave me quite good exposure because I worked for a company called Tech Systems, and it was one of, if I remember correctly, one of the top 100 companies to work for in the United States. They had a very good work culture that was premised on individuals. We would have separate meetings where you just talk about the values of the organization and how you can implement that. When an individual starts, they would be assigned a particular mentor that would walk them through their journey and what would be expected of them in the organization and ensure that they had a success in their role. And beyond that, you also were able to interact, regardless of what level you are in the organization, with senior representatives in the organization. So you really felt valued in that organization.
All right. So you never had a Zambian, university experience?
No, I didn't have a Zambian university experience, but one thing that really stands out is that the work culture that I developed particularly in secondary school, having to write grade 9, grade 12 exams, and the pressure that puts me, I think is one of the things that I took when I went into college and university. So that work culture of having to work out in the morning, make sure that you are studying, understanding your topics, your coursework, and getting it done is what I think caused me to excel even when I went outside. So it's a different environment. Even talking to other people, definitely it is a different environment. But I think the groundwork for my education actually, I would say, started in secondary school, primary school, and the strong work culture that we have in Zambia if you do follow what the teachers ultimately encourage you to do.
Okay, so you come back to Zambia.
Yeah.
Where do you go for work? Do you go to Aflife?
So I came back to Zambia. I stayed for about 8 months. In those 8 months, first just getting used back into the system, I was gone for close to 7 years. Over 7 years, I was away, and in those 7 years, I only came back once to visit. So I had come back, so just trying to find my feet. Took about 8 months. In those 8 months, I was applying. And then I finally got an opportunity to interview with African Life Financial Services. They did have an opening for an investment analyst, which was aligned with the finance that I'd done in school. And then with my master's, I'd focused more on the finance aspect. So I did have my first interview with the chief investment officer at the time. It was successful and I got started. I was given the role of an assistant investment analyst, and that was the 1st of June of 2014.
2014.
Yes.
So as far as your work in Zambia is concerned, you've only worked for one organization in the country?
Well, technically speaking, I've worked for two given the first role that I talked about
After grade 12.
After grade 12. So
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
my focus was more on post, university.
yeah, post university,
Just African life.
yes, within
Okay.
Zambia.
So you enter this organization. Do you enter with the thing of I can become CEO here one day?
No, not really. When I entered, I think I was just looking at surviving. I was in a 3 months probation period, and the expectation is that you hit the ground running. So you're trying to first understand what is required of you, make sure that you're delivering, and then I was just really focused on surviving. That's really what I was looking at in the first 3 months, and literally hit the ground running. You had to start working on reports, doing research reports, company analysis. So it was exciting work because with the work that you're doing as an analyst, you would go review a company, get to attend their AGMs, have discussions with management, get a view on what they are thinking of the company, and then understand the sector in which that they're operating. So you're doing your own research in that. So it was exciting in that way, but then you're also learning about various investment opportunities, getting to better understand how the Zambian economy actually works and where the investment opportunities would be. And then alongside with that, you also have reporting requirements to your respective clients. So just getting a hands-on feel of that. But it was good. It was a supportive environment. We did have another senior investment analyst that was well seasoned, was able to assist, and our chief investment officer at the time, who later on became our CEO, was equally quite instrumental. It was a smaller team, so because of that, you could directly interact with the chief investment officer. You could directly interact with the other investment analyst, and then from there, the team started to grow, and then also responsibilities started to grow as well.
For many young people, you enter an organization, you are relatively new. What kind of attitude do you think is needed for a new employee in an organization?
I think what is quite key is having an attitude that you're here to learn. I know sometimes when you're coming out of school, you have fresh ideas and you feel like what you know is the cutting edge information, and you're quite keen to implement. But sometimes when you then come into the work environment, you find out that some of the things that you learned are not really applicable. And one of the things that we also needed to find out is that some of the theories that we learned in school, and if you're also coming in from the US perspective, it works in that market, but then our market is completely different. So then you start to say, okay, how do I apply this to what I'm learning? So have an attitude where you're looking to learn, and then be willing to ask questions. Don't try and show that you know it. Find out, why is it done a certain way? Why do you do this a certain way? And then also be willing to share your ideas, because yes, you do have these ideas, and not everything that has been done the same way all along should continue being done the same way. So you also need to be willing to test that, but in a respectful manner. You're not doing it thinking that you are better than them, but here's a different way in which we can do this. It may be more faster, more efficient, which will better help the organization. But what is quite key is come in with an attitude willing to learn. And I think that is the right attitude to have, especially when you're just starting your career. You should be more focused on learning than you should be on any other aspect. That's what I believe.
2014, you joined African Life. This is 2023. That's what, 9 years, right? And in 9 years, you're CEO. Before we get to the CEO part, how do you remain relevant in an organization? Because some people can't hold a job that long. You're declared redundant. No, we found someone better, or you get fired. How do you remain relevant? How do you keep adding value to your organization?
A very good question. And it goes back to the aspect of learning, but then you also need to be open to take on new responsibilities. So looking at an investment analyst, your key role would really be investment looking at investment opportunities, analyzing those, where the good opportunities are, and then being able to make your ultimate recommendations. But beyond that, and given the size of our company, we also had client interactions as well. And then I was also exposed to new business development. So there were things that initially were not within my scope of what I was expected of it, but then my superiors, and mainly our chief investment officer at the time, who later on became our CEO, Jeff, he would throw responsibilities at you. There were instances where he would be invited to do a presentation, and then he would ask me, okay, work on the presentation. So you're working on the presentation thinking that you're working on it, or on that presentation for him to go and deliver. And then the next thing he says, no, you're the one who's going to go and deliver that. So you need to be open then to take various opportunities that will come up. Other times, it's people who are preparing you without telling you that they're preparing you for what lies ahead. So one of the things then that I would say in terms of remaining relevant is look for opportunities, but also when the people around you are not able to fully execute something, or they're tied down with other responsibilities, start to think, okay, what can I do to lessen your load? Because when you do that, you're exposing yourself to new avenues. So you're growing yourself, but then you're also becoming more relevant to the organization, because not only can you do one particular task, you can now do multiple tasks, and you become very versatile and can fit in other parts of the organization.
What do you think of those people that say, I can't do that, it's not in the job description?
I think it's a self-limiting statement. They don't realize what they're doing, because ultimately you're saying you don't want to take on more work. But one thing that I've come to realize is that the higher you climb the ladder, the more responsibilities you have to take. So if you're then saying that, no, I can only do what's in my job description, then in essence, you're saying that you don't want more responsibility and you're happy where you are. So you need to then be open to take on more responsibilities, because it's also helpful for your own self. That's what's going to expose you to growth. If you're just focused on what you can do, you become good at it, and then sometimes it also gets boring. I'll take you back to even the time when I was an investment analyst. One of the things that I started doing a lot were client visitation. There were times where a client meeting would come out, no one on the team would be available, and usually we would have two people going for the team for a client engagement. More or less as a tag team and to support each other and so on. But then I found myself going to client meetings on my own. And I started enjoying the client meetings. A lot of the clients got to know me and got to a stage where most of the clients knew me as the person who would attend on behalf of Aflife. Most of the other people were not as known, because I was the one who was always going for it. So with time, I was then given an opportunity. So from assistant investment analyst, after about 2 years or so of doing that, I was then promoted to client relationship manager. And that was mainly as a result of my interaction with clients. And so by being open to take up that responsibility and lean heavily on it, which was an opening that I guess it wasn't really known that, okay, this is a direction that will come, because that position in the organization actually didn't exist. So when I was promoted, I was being promoted into a new position in the organization, and part of it was willingness to take up that particular opportunity.
Wow, great! I was actually about to ask what was your first promotion. so you're now promoted there. How does a CEO role come?
Okay. The CEO role, of course, since now we're at the point where we're 2 years in, it took some time, but I think it was also as a result of mentorship within the organization. Mentorship within the organization. So we do have a succession plan within Aflife, which looks at emerging leaders and then tries to see where these people are going to be, and then they start working towards developing you. So from client relationship manager, with more exposure, I got to head the client relations department. So I became the head. And then having done that, I was then promoted to deputy CEO as part of now the transition. And with that, it gave me the responsibility to oversee the implementation of strategy for the business. Also gave me, in addition to client relations, business development, I was also looking at one of the specific products that we're looking at in private equity as well. So it was then a series of exposure that you would have to various aspects in the business. And then, so with my background, I did have exposure within the investments department, also relating to client relationships, as well as business development, stakeholder engagement. So that then did give me the background, the training that I needed to be able to take on the CEO role. The only department where I did not actively function was the operations and finance, but then I've also had opportunity to interact with a lot of the team members from that side as well.
What would you learn? What did you learn as a CEO that you could never have learned as just a general member of the organization?
Well, when you get to the CEO level, the responsibility of the organization, to an extent, begins to rest on you. You interact more with the board of directors as well. So, well, I think the good thing with AfLife is, because we are, though it's a big organization, it's more in the sense that we have a small team. We are about 26 in terms of head count. And every year we have our strat meeting, our strategy planning meeting. So to be a review of the strategy as well as development of the strategy. And we also do come up with the 5-year strategy. But that strategy would come from input from everyone in the organization. So from that point of view, it gives you a good perspective of the organization. So I feel that, yes, you get exposed more to certain things as you become a CEO, but then every member of our organization has a good understanding of the business, how we're performing, what the key drivers are for our business, what the strategic direction would be for our business. And that strategic direction is one that is then crafted by all the members. So they have input into it, and therefore they have buy-in, and everyone is working towards achieving those goals.
How can young people be more intentional about their personal development in the organization? Because there are some who walk in and they say, look, I walk into African Life today. I want to be CEO one day. How do I deliberately then position myself for that?
A very good question. Part of it comes from the discussions that you have with your supervisor, with your mentor, that you would have. So along the way, we would have discussions then with my direct supervisor. So initially it was one of the investment analysts, and then later on, as I got promoted, I was reporting directly into the CEO. So he then was my supervisor and, to an extent, my mentor. And we would then have discussions around what are the opportunities within the organization. Because everyone then would be thinking about, okay, what are the opportunities within the organization? So if you then know that these are the opportunities within the organization, then you then have a discussion around what is the path that will get you there. And from there, you then have things that you need to work on, opportunities that you need to be exposed to. So you then also start to know, where is the company going and what do I need to do to become relevant to the company in the direction in which it's going. And then beyond that, I think what's also important is keep growing yourself, keep keep ensuring that you are investing in your own professional development. A lot of the organizations might have professional development programs, so take advantage of those. And there are times where you also may need to negotiate and see how you can get those exposures. And then it's also important to build relationships, because as you go, it's those relationships that will support you. Because yes, people can say that I'm the CEO, but the truth of the matter is that I don't do everything in the organization. I have to rely on our team, and I believe that we've got one of the best teams in the country when it comes to the work staff that we have, speaking to their capabilities, the skills that they have in place, the education experience. We've got a great team. So you being able to build those relationships, because it's those people that need to remain inspired for them to be able to deliver. So continue building relationships, because you never know who will recommend you. You never know who will also give you the advice that you need for your next level. And then one of the other things that's equally important and may not be completely found within your workspace. Yes, in my case, I was able to also have direct mentorship by our chief executive officer at the time, Jeffrey Musekiwa, who I was able to succeed from. I did have mentorship sessions with him. But beyond that, I also had identified another mentor who was experienced in the industry, who I could also get advice and tips from. So all that was helpful. So I think it's good to be able to identify a mentor as well. They help to bring perspective and help you also along the journey that you're looking to pursue.
You sound like you are from a very healthy, work environment, which for most people may not be the case, because, to be honest, most people are really in very toxic work environments. Even just telling your supervisor that I plan to become CEO, will just damage the relationship altogether. Because he then thinks you're being ambitious, you are what, you should slow down. And there are all these, people, not just a direct supervisor, but then most people find themselves in a work environment where no one really cares about you. No one really looks out for you. No one is even willing to mentor you. So ultimately, you're out there on your own. And everyone is out to get you. They're looking for the next mistake so they can punish you, and they want to charge you for this and charge you for that. In the event that I am not in an environment that, for example, you've described, where I'm able to have a person that is looking out for me, that's my boss, or I'm able to identify a senior member in the organization. For example, if I'm an auditor, maybe I go to the chief internal auditor and he mentors me. I don't have that. How do I then still keep my eye on the prize and still get there?
All right. Very good question, and very relevant. So there are a couple of options that you can pursue. Firstly, I did talk about your own personal development, and that is not restricted to the professional or academic route. It also speaks to the books that you're reading. There are a lot of biographies, there are a lot of books on people that have been able to make it. And there's such programs that you're doing, podcasts, that you're able to listen to the stories of other people to draw inspiration and also get lessons. One of my mentors in life had passed down something that I believe is very valuable, that the stories may be different, but the principles are what remain constant. So my story might be different. The examples, experience I might give would be different. It may be different from yourself, but there's certain principles in how to manage one's life that you can draw from. So it's those principles that you need to look out for, not that you're trying to follow the exact same path. There will be another CEO who will come after me. His path or her path may be completely different from me, but there may be certain principles that we would all have followed to get there. And then, secondly, what I was also going to say is that look out beyond your immediate workplace environment. So in my case, one of the privileges that I have is from church. We do, from the church environment, I believe in I believe in God. I attend church regularly. And then from there, there's certain people who you're able to also identify that, okay, this is someone who is of like faith, but has still been able to accomplish it. And it takes some boldness to be able to approach that person and say that your life is an inspiration to me. Would you be able to mentor me? I've been able to have those discussions with a couple of people, and with most of them, they've been positive in their feedback. And it's you being able to pursue that relationship and follow through. It may be that you follow them to their office. You could arrange for a lunch meeting from time to time, and where you sit down, you speak about some of the challenges that you're facing, and then they could be able to give you advice based on the experiences that they've gone through. And they may have gone through some of the similar challenges that you're facing. Then you find out, okay, how do you navigate this particular issue that you're facing? So you don't need to restrict yourself within your workplace environment. We're based on your own networks. So it could be, in my case, it's been church, but maybe you belong to another group that you attend. Are there people in that particular group within your broad network that you can begin to reach out to? Most of the times we suffer with our problems because we don't want to reach out and get help. And other times we fear rejection. But one of the things that I've noted, at least from my own experience, is that when I've been able to reach out to people, a lot of them are happy to tell me their stories. They're happy to make some time, because the truth of the matter is that if you've made it to the top, along the way someone helped you. Yeah. And because someone helped you, you're more likely to help someone else get there as well. So because people were able to take time, invest in me to get to where I am, I'm also more likely to be able to invest in other people to make sure that they also become a better person. I remember something that our CEO had also mentioned. He said when he looks back at his career, our former CEO, when he looks back at his career, he realizes that the direction in which he took, which affected his economics and affected where he got to, was as a result of someone who was able at a young age to tell him that, hey, I can see that you have something in you, and that you're more suited in this particular career and not where you're trying to go. And when he took that, it's gotten to where he is. And part of even where I am were opportunities, things that people saw in me that I actually didn't even see in myself. The opportunities that I talked about that I was being given that I actually didn't even think I was well suited for those opportunities. But because someone believed in me, they were able to offer me those opportunities. So yes, there is the toxic side, but we also have people who are willing to invest. So it's just a matter of being able to find those and utilize those opportunities that are there.
Great. There are a lot of people, like I said, that obviously want to be where you are. But I'm sure there are some things that they do that, jeopardize their prospects at, growing in their organizations. What are some of the things that you've noticed that people do that can really hinder their progress?
I think so. Earlier I talked about how people may not be willing to take on opportunities. Yeah. That in itself does. And then also, it may also be around beginning just to do the bare minimum. You're capable of doing more, but all that you're doing is just the bare minimum that is acceptable. And then you're not putting in your effort. And people are able to tell that. They may advise you and say, okay, now stop doing this, or they'll encourage you to work a bit harder, put more effort in there. But if you're not responding, you're also sending them a message that you're not ready to take on responsibility. You're not willing to do more than what is required of you. So if you want to do the bare minimum, I think you're not ready to move to the next level. Because moving to the next level, is showing that you can do more than what you are currently required to do.
Some people have the notion that I can do more, but the salary in this company, it doesn't, merit me doing more. And then there are others who, and I got this from the Stanchard CEO, and said there are others who are at a position in their life where they feel like, I can do more, but when I become manager. You get the point, eh? I can work longer hours, I can put in more work, but first let me get a promotion. For now, I'll do the bare minimum.
Yeah. I get where you're coming from, and it's a usual thought that people have, but it's the wrong thought that people have. Because the truth of the matter is, how do I know you can deliver if you haven't shown me that you can actually deliver? So you need to deliver first, and then the promotion will come. Because you're already working into it, and then it's much easier for you to have those conversations. I think one of the important things also is to realize at what stage of the game that you are at. If you're starting out, most of the time when you're starting out, you may not have a lot of financial pressure. Yes, the financial pressure will be there, but the pressure is not as much as someone who may have a family and so on. So your focus there shouldn't be about the money, but it should be about learning, building a track record for yourself. Because once you build a track record for yourself and you earn yourself a reputation that this is someone who is willing to work hard, someone who is willing to come early, someone who is willing to stay late, make sure that they deliver. They're more focused on delivering than they are about getting the nice perks. Then you know that this is someone who is focused and who is willing to go the 9 yards. And that's the person that you're more likely to promote. And then as you do that, speaking back to your earlier question, the organization that you're in may not be able to recognize that. But as you start to interact with more people, other people will be able to tell that this is an individual that is working hard. There will be people who recommend you in other organizations. You may get an opportunity in a different organization because you know that this is someone who works hard. I've seen their work culture. But then if you're just slacking, you're talking about potential that may or may not be realized. Because how do I know that you actually start delivering? We may give you more money, but then you still say, oh, no, this is not enough. It's not motivating me enough. So therefore, I need more money. So that's a risk that you're willing to take. And any manager, any leader will more likely prefer to get the person who has demonstrated the ability to work hard to deliver than someone who is only promising to deliver once you pay them more money.
You are a CEO, and obviously you have a hand in the hiring process, for example, right? What kind of employee do you look for? So someone comes or whatever, like, what are you looking for in an employee? Regardless of the role, what exactly do you look for that really makes this candidate sellable than the other one?
All right. Very good question. So in addition to them meeting the minimum requirements in terms of, be it educational requirements or having an understanding of the role, you're also looking at whether the person will be a cultural fit. In my case, I'll be looking at, is this person a team player? Have they worked in a team before? What's the contribution that they've made in that team? How have they ensured that the whole team was able to achieve what they were able to achieve? Because when we look at our own culture, it's working as teams. So I need to ensure that this is a team player. And you're also looking for someone who's worked hard. In our industry, the work can be quite intense. So you need someone who is willing to understand that and willing to go the extra mile. Then also looking for someone who is honest, someone who is open, willing to challenge the status quo, willing to also contribute. So those are some of the key qualities that would be looking for.
What are mistakes that you made on your way? And what did you learn from them?
Yeah. Well, mistakes are not usually the good things that we like to talk about, but definitely they are what we learn from. One of the mistakes that I remember vividly making was we're in a meeting and there was something that had happened in the economy. It might have been a central bank monetary policy that had changed or something. And we were discussing what the implications were. And as one of my colleagues was giving his view, I quickly jumped in and wanted to give my view. So at the time, the person chairing the meeting stopped me right there and then and said what I had done was not acceptable and that I needed to be able to allow the other person to speak before I could jump in. Of course, it did hurt, but then it helped me also realize that we need to value other people's opinion. Just because you've got an idea doesn't make your idea better than someone else's idea. So one of the things then that I learned from that was the ability to be able to respect the views of others and acknowledging that the views of others actually do matter.
Great. Yeah. You are a pastor, right?
That's correct.
Is it something that you take to work?
In terms of,
so you see, there are some people who you're a pastor, you are spiritual, you're what, but then you come to work, it's just work. Do you show that side of you? And then why I'm asking also is because some people take advantage. No, he's a pastor, he can't fire me. You understand, you'll be kind, you what, that kind of thing. That's what I'm saying. So do you take that to work in terms of, do you pray in meetings? Do you, open the prayer, close the prayer, like that? Or it's something you say, no, this is work, let me not,
All right. So, yes, I'm a pastor, but more importantly, for me, I'm a Christian first. So that guides then how I live my life. And when I show up for work, yes, I've shown up for work, but for me, I believe it's a Christian who has shown up for work. So how I carry myself there also matters. It needs to be able to align with my belief system, that what I'm doing aligns with who I am. So I won't go openly and start, say, evangelizing or praying, but I'll remain respectful of the organization that I'm in. I'll follow the norms that are in those organizations. So, for instance, for some of our client meetings, we would have prayers. I would volunteer to pray. It's not... I think internally, we usually don't start meetings with prayer. So I haven't tried to impose that, to have prayers on there. But for me, the key really has been how I live my life, the example that I'm setting, and whether that is a reflection of Christ that is living in me.
And the next question I was going to ask is, how has your Christianity shaped the kind of, CEO that you are in terms of how you interact with your staff and those Christian values? How are they reflecting in the organization?
Okay. Well, I only became CEO early this year. So some of that is still...
Early this year or last year?
No, early this year. So the first,
January?
Yes, the 1st of January, yeah.
Yeah, what a way to start a new year.
So just a month and a half as CEO. So we're still coming into, in essence, driving and becoming the organization that we are looking at coming. But let me step back to answer that question, not from a perspective of a CEO, but one of the things that guided me as I did my work was that when I'm working as unto the Lord. So there was a time where you are working, but it feels like you're not being recognized for the work that you're doing. You're working so hard, and in those moments, you may be tempted, okay, I'm not getting recognized for all this work that I'm doing. Let me not do it anymore. But then one of the things that kept me going and keeps me going even up to today is knowing that as I do my work, I'm doing it as unto the Lord. I'm not really doing it for man. Of course, there are the benefits that come to it, but ultimately, I'm doing it for God's glory. So that then helps me in what I'm doing to ensure that, for instance, I work hard, that I am fair with the employees that I'm working with. And one of the things that I would like my hallmark as a CEO now is being someone who is able to hear the voice of our staff, our team members, to fully understand what it is that they're doing, and then also work towards ensuring that we're able to meet those needs wherever we can, and make a good work environment that will allow for growth, that will be one that people are happy to come to the office at, where the views of the team members are respected, and then where we also have opportunities for growth. So some of the things that we've been discussing earlier this year with our senior management team were that we want to make training a priority. We want to make sure that each of our team members is undergoing the training that they ought to on an annual basis. We are looking at certain initiatives that will provide our team members with a voice, that they'll be able to come through and be able to express themselves, so that we hear the issues that they may have that they may not have had a platform before to voice. And then, more importantly, how can we deal with those issues as well?
All right. As a CEO, you're also human, and as human beings, we want to be liked. Okay, and so we don't want to hurt others. You don't want to hurt their feelings. How would you draw the line between, look, memory needs to be castigated here, but even in that, sort of don't want to hurt our feelings. Do you ever have that?
Certainly, those issues do come up, but then what's important then is realizing that I can be this person's friend, but then I won't be helping this person out. And the approach that I like to take is having a candid discussion with someone and tell them, okay, this is what I've noticed. And I know that you are capable to do more. What's going on? Because sometimes behavior could be a reflection of other underlying issues. So it's important to get to the root of it. Is it other underlying issues that we need to deal with on that side? Or is this person just truly slacking off? So having those discussions with them, but also you have to remain alive to your responsibilities as a leader, that at the end of the day, you need to deliver. And you are held accountable for the results that you have or lack thereof. So you need to also be able to have those difficult discussions so that ultimately we deliver at the end of the day.
Wow. And also the other thing is, how do you get the best out of people? And I'm asking you this question as a leader of a big organization, but there are also people who you're managing 1 or 2 people, 3 people. How do you get the best out of them? Like you said earlier, there are some people like you can do better than this, but where is the bottleneck? Where is the problem? How do you get people at their optimum?
All right. I think first and foremost, one of the things that I've been encouraged to do, even through the mentorship that I was doing with our former CEO, is to empower individuals. So empowerment would come through the form of giving them the authority they need to carry out their tasks, giving them the space that they may need so that you're not constantly hovering over them and trying to micromanagement, but give them the space, let them come up with something. You can provide guidance along the way. So empowerment is key. And then it's still a learning process. But part of it also comes down to what motivates the particular individual. So if you've got an idea that this is what this person is aspiring to do, for instance, then you can have a discussion around, okay, you want to get there. So these are some of the things that you need to do. These are the things that I expect from you. So now that person's desires and path is aligned with what you're trying to achieve. So they're more motivated then to be able to achieve those particular tasks.
You're relatively young, and obviously you oversee maybe some people that are older than you. How do you manage that?
All right. The good thing is, with our current organization, it's actually a young staffer.
You're the oldest.
Prior to me, our former CEO was the oldest. I think I might be, if I have it correct, I should be the second oldest person in the organization.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
But then also what about out? Because sometimes you meet clients,
Yeah.
who look at, that's your CEO, wants to, maybe talk down to you or treat you differently because they feel like you're young. They can just, bully you in their meeting and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that helped in our case was the preparation that was done. So before I became the CEO, I was actually deputy CEO for about 2 years as well. So, and then remember, especially with our clients, I did have interactions with them prior. So a number of them, once the announcement was made, they already had those interactions with me. So it did help in that matter. But then also, I think one of the key things, especially for us young people, as we come to the table, and there may be other people older, the key is, what are you bringing to the table? And it's not about flexing your muscles, throwing out titles, but at the end of the day, it's the value that you bring to the table, the solutions that you're able to provide. So if we continue to provide those solutions, we continue to remain relevant, then you won't be thinking about how old the person is, but your focus now is that, okay, can this person help me with what I'm looking for? So that tends to be what would drive me and help me even as I navigate those particular channels.
Okay. There was someone I was talking to. They're also a young CEO, and I was saying, look, you're a young CEO. Does it mean that now your life is just CEO? When you leave African life, next job means just CEO? Or are you, willing to, I can become manager account, I can become manager finance, I can become director finance. What does being CEO a young really mean for the long term?
Okay. It's a very good question. I think what I'm thinking about is, for now, is being able to deliver on what would be required of me. And then beyond that is also, similar as I was given the opportunity, try and work through our succession plan to be able to also identify new talent that will eventually have to replace me. And then beyond that, we can then start to explore other opportunities. But for now, yes, I do know that there'll be a day I won't be CEO of Aflife anymore. But I think for now, I'm preoccupied with delivering on the current role, and then I'll start to think of some of those.
The operational staff in the organization, there are some things that they don't see because they're not in management. What are some things about management that people don't understand, that they need to understand? That mental preparedness, that look, one day when you become in management, this is what you expect, this is how you conduct yourself, this is how because at some point, the things where it's in most organizations, people feel management, they're unfair, they are what? It's like a child, eh?
Yeah.
When a parent says, do this, there's that proverb in Africa where they say, the things that, a parent sees while seated, a child can see while standing, And so as an ordinary employee in the organization, there's something that you don't see, that managers see, and they use those things to make decisions. What are some of those things that you may not ordinarily see, but management is able to see? And as a young person, I'm able to now begin mentally preparing to say, look, in management, this is what I'm going to find.
Okay. I think one of the things that you think is that when you look at the CEO, you expect that they would have the final say in the organization. But then the CEO is also held accountable. You're accountable to your board of directors. So you also have these constraints. Because one of the key discussions, expectations, especially from employees, is always more money, a larger bonus, and so on. But then the code doesn't fully rest on you. You can make a recommendation, but ultimately there are other people that also need to make those decisions. So sometimes normal employees or in management, you may not fully see that and appreciate that. So they look at you and think that you hold so much power. But yes, you have power, but it's within whatever delegated authority you have been given by the board of directors. So it's being able to understand that as well.
As we come to an end, what would the top 5 things be that you would like to give to younger people who are working, trying to build their careers as advice? What 5 things would you say to them?
All right. I hope I managed to do all 5. Firstly, I would continue to say focus on learning. Focus on learning, on growing. And then as you also do that, maybe the second thing would be continue to build your network, the relationships, the people that you work with, be it clients, be it your peers, the ones maybe subordinates, as well as your superiors, just continue building a good work relationship. In this world, I believe everyone matters, everyone has value, and you need to be able to see the value in people, so relate well with every person that you interact with. Then third, I would then say is be willing to take opportunities. Never be comfortable in your comfort zone and want to remain in that comfort zone. So for instance, if you're an accountant, don't say that everything I'll ever want to do is just do accounts. Be interested in other aspects of the business. Sometimes you may find that will lead to opportunities that you never thought would happen to you and take you in a whole different direction in terms of your career. So be open to opportunities as well. And number 4, I would say, is work hard and be honest as you work hard. In life, we've shunned away from working hard. And of course, the key is work smart. But even as you do that, I think ultimately it comes down to hard work. There are instances in my career where I've had to work hard, where you've been on the road multiple times and so on. But then eventually, I believe God has a way of rewarding you for the work that you do. And then number 5, I would say, is find a mentor wherever you can, which will be quite instrumental in helping to guide you along your way.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any question that you wish I should have asked you?
Any question that you should have asked me? You could have asked me more about African Life Financial Services. So I guess my parting note would be the investment products that we offer, even on an individual level, would be something that would be quite helpful. It's a minimum of 500 kwacha for your first investment and a minimum of 200 kwacha for your second or subsequent investment. And then what this allows you to do is that in Zambia, we don't really have a savings culture. It's starting to develop, but you need to prepare for your future. And one of the best ways to prepare for your future is start to invest now. It's something that is small, but over the long term can grow into something significant. So if you're looking for investment opportunities on an individual level or as an institution, please get in touch with us. We'll be more than glad to help you.
What's your number 1 investment product that you have?
Our number 1 investment product. So the most popular product that we have for individuals is what is called as the Mpile High Yield Debt Fund. But now, when you look at our investment products, they are suitable to an individual depending on the circumstances that they are in. So one product, which though is popular, may not be ideal for you. So it depends on what your investment goals are, what your risk profile would be. So that then would guide how or which investment opportunity you can explore. And even as we interact, we'll be able to advise you and guide you along the way so that you don't get a big shoe when you've got small feet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was a conversation with Mr. Imakando Jonathan. He is the Chief Executive Officer for African Life Financial Services, who I believe now you know a bit more about than you did before this conversation. And obviously, there has been a lot of information about them, I think, on the screen here and there. So thank you so much for being a part of episode 31. 32 is coming next week on Wednesday again. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope that you're having a productive one.